to help this community. Those passions are going to collide here and there. I think everybody needs to be having civilized adult conversations, and we need to treat each other with respect. When you have agitators and disruptors that do this, it makes me personally want to not listen to that group that they're trying to advocate for. So hopefully they can take that into context. There will be some changes to how our meetings proceed, and some of the agendas that we have, not the topics of agenda or the agenda topics, but kind of how we proceed through the meetings. We will have some discussions here in the near future, please take this into account. I will be recommending some changes solely to protect us, our family members, and the citizens that we serve that come and visit us in the chamber, because we need to have some law and order here. We need to have some respect for everybody else. So I just wanted to kind of put that out in the public venture and let everybody kind of breathe with that a little bit. We're going to have some more conversations later in the workshop in regards to how we can tailor our meetings a little bit better to be a little bit safer for us. With that, let us proceed. And looks like we have interviews for Budget Committee first.
Tony's first.
Okay. Sorry. Ms. Webb.
Hi, I'm Tony Webb.
Okay, so you are here for an interview for the Budget Committee. We'll start out. Does anybody have any specific questions? Victoria?
What do you see as the most important financial issue facing the city, and why is it important? And yes, that's the question.
The most important financial issue facing the city. Well, I think we have some economic issues, and the people really need to know that the budget is going to work for them, and they need to feel involved. I did some research. In fact, I read the Oregon Department of Revenue guidelines for a city budget, local budgeting, and, well, actually all budgets in Oregon municipal. And they said that Oregon stands out among other states in that we have established a standard for the budgets, and that it requires citizen involvement and public disclosure. And I think citizen involvement and public disclosure can go a long way toward tampering down the kind of incidents that happen to Mayor Scherf, where people feel they're informed and they're involved. And I just know from life experience that no matter what decision you make, there are going to be people who don't like it. So, I mean, that's just life. So I would say it's the economy in Josephine County and Grants Pass, and sort of building the budget around what can we do to help this area.
Thank you.
Indra?
Yes, thanks for coming today. What specific contributions do you hope to make?
Well, along the lines of I mean, congratulations to the new council members who were elected. I'm excited about your philosophy and wanting to make the city a better place. And I intend to make sure that the budget is in line with your goals for the city.
Thank you.
Rick, and then Kathleen.
Thank you, Tony. What is the greatest asset you can bring to the City of Grants Pass Budget Committee?
Pardon me?
What is the greatest asset? What talents can you bring?
Oh, the
Experiences?
talents that I bring? Well, I've worked in a finance department. I was assistant to the CFO of a company that was on the New York Stock Exchange that was $1 billion capitalization, and we had about 80 locations around the world. And I prepared the SEC reports, the board meeting reports, the financial statements, so I know quite a bit about it. Also, I think one of my talents is research, and I tend to not take something at face value, but want to look beyond and do more research into it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kathleen?
Yeah, hi, Tony. I just want to ask you, you've lived here before, I see, and you've come back, and what do you think it has caused the economic development to decline so much? What, in your estimation?
What do I think of the economic development
decline.
effort?
Decline,
The-
the decline in it.
Yeah.
You've come back and there's storefronts empty, there's, what do you?
Yeah, I think that more can be done, a lot more can be done.
Right, but what do you think is kind of the root of that?
Yeah. Well, I think I need to look into it more to answer that.
Perfect. Hey, let me advise you guys with the microphones, you do have to kind of like pull them into you a little bit, and you will be able to hear yourself. So if you don't necessarily hear yourself, then the public can't hear you as well. So.
Yeah.
Joel.
Tony, thank you for applying. I appreciate that. So you're very willing to invest some of your time in a arduous task. What do you expect as dividends or reward to come out of that?
For me personally?
For whoever,
For the community?
for you, for us, for the citizens.
Yeah. Well, I was born here, and my dad had a sawmill in Sutherland, and so I've seen the area go from pretty robust, a lot of middle class, even the kind of maybe lower middle class, everyone was doing well. And I've just seen a lot of poverty in the last 20 years. And poverty brings all kinds of problems. And we seem to have a lot of them here. So, my contribution is definitely to make this a better place for everyone. Yeah.
Indra?
It wasn't clear so I know that you're from around here and you've been involved in local things here, and then you moved away. It's not clear to me, it says how many years, you said years total. How long have you been back since you moved away?
Oh, gosh, I've moved, it's a long, do you want it from, as a teenager?
No, just your most recent time away.
Okay, so because
and
I've
coming
been,
back.
I've been kind of back and forth.
Right.
I moved here, I was living in Portland, and I moved here in 2009, and then I moved to Santa Monica in 2018, and then I moved back here just recently. But I've been reading the newspaper, and my mother lives here, my relatives live here. I have a lot of friends here. I got to know the county really, really well because I ran for commissioner, came pretty close. I got 46% of the vote, and then I ran for Southern Oregon Education Service District, and I was elected to that. And in that process, when you run for office, as I'm sure you all know, you get to know a lot of people. And I got to know a lot of people all over the county. And I go to my class reunions. So even though I was away, I've been in Los Angeles for the past 6 years, I would come visit my mother. I would stay in contact with my friends and classmates, read the newspapers. I'm very, very up on what's been going on.
Okay, I understand you're up on what's going on. I guess just to clarify then, you were gone for 6 years. How long have you been back? Like
I've been back-
2 months, a year, 2 years?
No, I came back December 7th.
Thank you.
So yeah, about a month.
Well,
But-
welcome home.
Right. Well, a lot of my friends, I mean, I have a lot of friends, and they were all saying, oh yeah, welcome home, welcome home. And then I, of course, escaped the fires just, in LA, so yeah, I've been following that too. It's scary, yeah.
Okay, I believe Eric was up next.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming out and taking our questions this morning. But what prior work or volunteer experience have you had that will be helpful for this position if you get appointed?
Oh, boy. I have a lot of volunteer experience. So helpful for the budget position. Well, some of my volunteer experience has been putting on events and having a budget for that. When I was living in Portland, I put on an event that drew 1,300 people at the Schnitzer Concert Hall. And there was a lot involved in that. So, and we had a budget. So, yeah, I have a lot of volunteer experience. Volunteer experience, usually you don't have, if you have a budget, it's really small. So it's not really can't be compared to the city budget of millions and millions of dollars. Yeah.
Kathleen.
So maybe my question would be better asked as from before. Describe your knowledge of the city of Grants Pass.
Describe the knowledge of what?
Of the city of Grants Pass. Like how you've been following what's going on in the city of Grants Pass.
Oh, in the city? Oh, well,
Yeah.
reading the Courier and talking to friends.
Yeah, that's how you've done it, but what is your knowledge of what is actually going on?
I'm not sure if I understand my knowledge.
Okay, let me rephrase that. So there has been a decline in the last 5 years. Like you said, there's more poverty here, and there's more issues going on in the town, like why this vote changed, why there's, new people in office now. And have you been following any of that being away? As you were away, were you following any of that? And since you've been back, what is your knowledge of what's going on in Grants Pass?
Well, I was following certainly the kind of major things that were going on, the homeless issue that went to the Supreme Court.
So,
Just general things I've been
excuse me, Tony.
following.
Let's bring this back full circle, guys. I think you guys are kind of getting off topic a little bit. We have candidates here that are going to serve on a committee. They have given you a list of qualifications for that. We want to try to keep this conversation to the topic of how they could better serve as a budget committee member, meaning how they're going to dedicate their time, what past experience they bring that would be a marketable asset to that budget committee to help them make decisions. I know you guys are trying to get a feel for that, but I think if you kind of stick to a pinpoint topic of what these candidates can bring to the table as a representative of the budget committee, then we might be able to get through this a little bit more efficiently. With that, does anybody else have any more pointy questions? Okay. With that, Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Kathleen.
So what is the role of the Budget Committee? What is the city's Budget Committee role, or the committee's role with working with the city?
Well, as I understand it, the role of the Budget Committee is to work with the city council and, end up with a budget that is going to be advantageous to the city and acceptable to most of the citizens. I mean, you're never going to get 100% acceptance of anything. So.
Perfect. Indra?
I just have a comment, Clint. So I think some of the questions, and I appreciate your being here and answering, and quite frankly, you're our first interview, so we're learning here. But I think some of the questions, Clint, are pertinent to being on the Budget Committee because we want to know the person understands our community and understands the economics and the goals of the counselors in the community. So I think in crafting the budget, like you mentioned earlier, and I liked to hear that you're crafting the budget that the council meets the goals of the council. That's important to me. So with that said, I think it is important to get more of a feel for the person than just what some of the dry questions are. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Anybody else have any questions? So, Tony, I got a quick question for you. Can you just explain why you want to be a Budget Committee member?
I would say over the past 10 years, I've just seen Grants Pass struggling, and I was active in a lot of groups when I was living here before, So Ready, and I mean, the whole list of them that I was active in. And I think the budget is the only financial piece that the people have to realize their goals and make the community a better place.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Not really.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your
we've covered
time.
most of it. I guess I would add that I've been a small business owner and I've worked for a very large corporation, and both of those involve knowledge of finance and budget.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Maybe it also helped just as a reminder for council on the role of what a budget committee is. And a budget committee is there and put in place. It's a requirement of Oregon revised statutes that we have public meetings to provide an opportunity for the public to speak. The budget committee is there also to allocate resources. Council is the one who drives the policy and determines the policy and the goals for the council, and then we develop the budget associated with that. So budget committee members coming in are not setting goals. They're not telling council what goals they're wanting, but they're there to appropriate resources based on council's goals to make sure they're appropriated appropriately. And so that was just a guideline also for you. So those individuals that have those strengths to be able to look at how to appropriate resources based on your direction that you provide.
Hey, Clint?
Yes, sir, Rob.
Just to add one more thing to what Aaron just said, and then for those that haven't been through it or don't know, it then comes back to the council. So the staff brings what they feel is their interpretation of council's goals to the budget committee. Budget committee, there is discussion, there is a little room for maneuvering there, but then it comes back to the council, and the council can accept or reject. So trying to get, nail down every detail from these applicants is unnecessary, quite frankly.
Thank you, Rob. We're going to proceed with the next, bring the next candidate in, please. come on up to the podium and introduce yourself and maybe give us a couple lines on why you want to be a budget committee member, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Jay Meredith, and I have applied for the Budget Committee because I have a fair amount of experience working with the city's budget after 10 years serving as the finance director, and that was 5 years ago. So I think I've been away from the city long enough to have an independent perspective of what the city's budget looks like, and I applied for the Budget Committee and the new City Public Safety Advisory Committee because I have a passion for governmental budgets locally and a passion for police and fire and helping us accomplish the city's goals. And so I applied just because I would like to serve. And Budget Committee and Public Safety Advisory Committee are the two ways that I think I'm most qualified to serve.
Perfect. And do we have any questions? Victoria, please.
What is the most important financial issue facing the city, and why is that the most important financial issue facing the city? And aside from the most important issue, what are some other big issues that are going to come up and you're going to have to deal with, in your opinion?
I see the funding of the city's water treatment plant and the funding of police and fire as kind of tied for the two most important issues facing the city. I think I'm hopeful that the city's water treatment plant will get funded properly. So if I had to pick one, I would say funding of police and fire is the city's the most important financial thing facing the city right now, and which is why I'm also excited about the new City Public Safety Advisory Committee that is coming together, because that committee will ideally serve as another way to do strategic planning for police and fire, including financial planning.
Thank you. Anyone else? Indra.
What specific contributions do you hope to make?
I think the best contribution, the best unique contribution that I can make to the Budget Committee is my many years of experience working with city departments and the City Council on making sure the budget is aligned with the city's top priorities and top goals. So as the City Council hopefully does a lot of great work to start the budget process, where the rubber really meets the road during the budget process is the strategic planning that the City Council does. I think I have a unique ability to look at the budget and analyze it and make sure that the dollars available in the budget have been properly allocated to the city's and the City Council's highest priority. So I think that's where I can be of the biggest assistance.
Rob.
Thanks, Jay. So since you have up close and personal experience with the Budget Committee, obviously, you being within as deep into the meetings as anyone could possibly be, being the former finance director, what would you say, how could that process be improved, or where are some of the shortcomings of that process? How would that process better serve the council and better serve the people? If you could make any changes to the process, what would they be?
In most years, the process goes very well and relatively smoothly. I was a little disappointed last year that the City Council didn't do an annual strategic planning process, because the most important part of the process is to gather input from your committees, from the public and from staff and from the City Council, put that all together and make sure the council prioritizes all those items. So that process didn't really go as smoothly as it normally went last year, so I'm hoping that we get back to that this year. So that would be one potential improvement, at least compared to last year. As far as how the meetings go, I think the Budget Committee sometimes dives into a greater amount of detail than than budget committees often do or should do. We should make sure to keep policy decisions out of the budget committee meetings because budget is really more about the allocation of resources and not, it's the city council's job to do, to make policy decisions. And so I think in some years, the budget committee dives a little bit too much into policy than they should, or dives way into the, the weeds of certain projects and certain details. So the meetings are probably a little bit longer than they should be in some years. But other than that, the process is usually pretty smooth.
Rick's next, and then Kathleen.
Thank you, Jay, for applying. Are you involved with different clubs and activities within the city so you sort of have a pulse of what goes on and you can bring that to the budget when you view different things?
There was a time where I was involved in, I was on 5 or 6 different nonprofits and local government agencies. Right now, my participation is limited to being very actively involved in my church. I'm on the 911, the Josephine County 911 Agency Board and Budget Committee. I'm on the Budget Committee of the Josephine Community Library District. I'm also on the Budget Committee of Rogue Community College. I serve with a local nonprofit, on the board of one local nonprofit, and I'm also on the board of one local for-profit. So, variety of different organizations that I get to collect input from a variety of local sources. Yes.
Thank you.
Kathleen, then.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for coming. I was wondering what resources you see that have not been beneficially utilized that we have in our community that you would bring forth.
That's a great question, and coincidentally, I met with one of the new city council members last week and answered that question. And so I actually brought a copy of this that I would like to, I'm going to leave this with Karen, and I'm hoping that she can distribute a copy of this to each of you. This is an analysis that I did of the city budget during last year's budget process. I was concerned because there were, I think that there is available some resources in the city's general fund that can be put to work in police and fire, and I think we can hire several more staff members in police and fire without increasing any city fees or tax rates at this point. And so this is a basic analysis that kind of proves that theory out. And so I would like, I hope to have the opportunity to, I talked to the last year's city council about this, and I hope to have the opportunity to talk to all city council members about that long before you get into the budget process. Because again, once you hit the budget committee meetings, that's really not where policy decisions are made. That's really more about allocating resources. And so this is one of those things that the city council should weigh in on long before the budget process, ideally.
Victoria.
I was interested to hear that you were on the board, the budget committee for RCC and the library, and so it just instantly spurred me to ask, what have you helped, describe to us how you have helped those boards achieve their budget goals, or anything that you can share. Maybe you're in the process of it and can't share too much, but anything you can.
I was a little bit more actively involved in the library district because I was appointed to the budget committee of the library district right after the district was formed, and so I've worked closely with the library district's executive director to help develop the budget process and help develop those budgets in the early years. So I think I was a little bit more active and helpful in the library district. Rogue Community College is a little bit of a larger animal that I'm not sure. I think I helped in contributing to the budget committee's overall understanding of the budget, because I could, with my experience serving with the city, in similar sized budgets, I could look at the budget and give some helpful advice there. But The budget committee process with Rogue Community College is not quite as involved as the city's budget process or the library district's budget process, so it's kind of it's a very smooth and just quick meetings, and at the Rogue Community College level, the budget committee meetings don't dive into nearly as much detail as the library does or the city does. So I think I contributed, but I think I was much more helpful with the library district in those early years.
Okay, anybody else? Perfect. And I was going to ask you why you wanted to serve, which you already did in the very beginning, so we'll give you a couple seconds for a last statement.
Yeah, I look forward to the opportunity to serve. I probably know the city's budget better than anybody that doesn't currently work for the city. So I look forward to serving, and I look forward to helping the city council meet your goals, and look forward to hearing what comes out of your strategic planning process this year. Thanks.
Thank you, Jay. Okay, so we have one more. It looks like he is walking in from outside, so just give us a second. Welcome. Come on up to the podium and start with giving us your name, and if you just want to give us a little blurb about why you want to be on the budget committee meeting.
Okay, great.
Budget committee.
Thanks, Mayor, Council, staff. My name is Terry Hopkins. I am a city resident. I live in Ward 4. I have owned and operated businesses in Grants Pass for many years. Graduate of Grants Pass High School. Moved away for a while, but came back to raise a family. I am currently the president and CEO of the Grants Pass Chamber of Commerce, and I just look forward to giving back to my community through service, and the opportunity to be on the budget committees, one of those ways.
Perfect. Does anybody have a question? Victoria.
What do you see as the most important financial issue facing the city? Why is that important? And are there, besides the most important, are there any other very important issues that you'd like to tell us about?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think the most important financial issue is going to be collaboration and folks, your constituents, understanding why decisions are made for spending. And in short, if I had to narrow it down and really truly answer your question, I would say that funding for public safety is going to be number one on that agenda.
Anybody else? Eric. Was your finger up or you're pushing? Okay, sorry. Indra.
Hi, Terry. What specific contributions do you hope to make being on the budget committee?
Yeah, thanks, Indra, or Councilor Nichols. You know, I bring several different pieces of experience that I hope will be beneficial. One, just having been here for quite some time and knowing Grants Pass, both from the perspective of a resident, a business owner, and an advocate for businesses, but certainly lots of experience in my life balancing budgets, understanding how that process works, and admittedly it's going to be a little bit weighted in the private sector. But outside of the private sector, you know, many of the things that feed into your budget, I worked for the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association for many, many years and have a very deep understanding how lodging tax dollars work. I've been on the Tourism Advisory Committee, obviously the Business Retention Expansion Committee through the Chamber, and so I have a basic understanding of restricted funds. So when it's not just that private sector, I get to make all the decisions and move money wherever I want, and I'm coming to a budget committee. I certainly understand that there are certain rules and restrictions that you play with in where money comes in and where it can be allocated that I think would be a help, both with the experience of private and public.
Anybody else? Kathleen?
What is your understanding, Terry, of the role of the Budget Committee?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, I think that that's something that I would have to be brought up to speed a little bit. That of the questions I've been asked might be one of the tougher ones. As I understand it, you know, the Budget Committee is a representation of staff, elected leaders, and individual citizens like myself that come together to work through these coming months to set forth the 2025 budget for the City of Grants Pass. I'm sure there's a lot more than that I don't know about.
Okay.
Perfect. Now Eric wants, go.
Thank you. Hello there. Thank you for coming, and thank you for bringing your volunteer time to us here today. But basically, I wanted to ask you, is there anything that you want to specify that you can bring to the table? I think it was touched on slightly, but is there anything specific that you think will help for this position that you're applying for?
Yeah, thank you for that. And it will be just a touch repetitive, but for the sake of answering your questions, it is that balance of public and private. You know, having run private businesses and certainly understanding I've been through good economic times, good businesses, bad economic times, and tough businesses, and I understand what it's like when cuts have to be made. A lot of times, you know, when the public is up criticizing we should do this or we should do that, having an in-depth knowledge of not only restricted funds, but the fact that the city is in a tough position when doing our budget this year. I anticipate it's going to be a difficult year. And so making difficult decisions is not hard for me. I mean, that's part of my individual private business background. When it comes to the public side and the service, again, I have a basic understanding of restricted funds. I understand how monies come into the City of Grants Pass, and although sometimes it might be nice to say, well, we've got money over here and a need over here, they don't always play well together. And so the very basic concept of restricted funds and public budgeting process and the difference of that between my own personal experience and private, I think will be a benefit.
Perfect. Victoria?
Why do you want to be on the Budget Committee?
Great question. I mean, ultimately, the short answer is I always have, whether it was private business, you know, representing businesses with the Chamber now, it's giving back to the community that I love. I hope to be able to have an impact and make this a better place for the generations to come. But Councilor Marshall, if I could just add one other piece, I was outspoken and opposed when the City Council was reviewing options including sales tax and a tax on food and beverage. I was in opposition to that. And while I supported public safety, I didn't feel like those were the answers, and I was vocal. And at that time, there was some criticism, and maybe rightfully so, to say it's easy for people to say don't implement new taxes, but give us public safety when they are not the ones tasked with finding the answers. And I agree with that, and I owned that. And I said from that day forward, not only am I going to oppose the food and beverage tax and the sales tax, but I'll be involved in the conversations to find the right answers. I mean, we do need funding for our public safety. It's not an easy answer, but I'm willing to come to, and I'm going to admit, I don't have some secret answer in my back pocket, but I'm going to come to the table and continue to communicate and help find the right answers.
Perfect. Anybody else? Okay, so I think I don't think anybody has any other questions. If you want to give us a couple exiting words, and then we'll say thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Again, thank you, Mayor and Council. It's just a nice opportunity to continue to contribute. I look forward to fresh new ideas paired with the experience of existing councilors, and I just hope that I have the opportunity to participate. If it's not on the Budget Committee, my work at the Chamber continues, and I know after this you will be making some appointments to other committees, and I really think that you're going to find that both myself personally and the Chamber of Commerce is going to be an asset and a resource in just gathering experience of your constituents and business owners in the community. So thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you.
You bet.
So that'll conclude our interview process for the Budget Committee members. There will be opportunity for further discussion in our Wednesday meeting, and then we will be voting on appointing new members to that committee. Okay, so next on our list to do here is committee liaison appointments. And I'm going to hand the mic over to Aaron.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Welcome to your workshop today. So what I have is I have a list of the council liaisons and that you'll be appointing yourselves to. I'll go through and just highlight what each of the advisory committee's purpose is and their membership, how many times they meet, so you can have a general idea of what you might be volunteering for. After I go through these, if you have questions on any specific one, I definitely take those questions. But at the end of my presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Karen. She's going to hop up here, and we've got a table that will be up here on the screen. And as you discuss what you would like to do from an advisory perspective, let us know. Now, in the past, there's been council members that have had more than one appointment to a liaison, and that's okay. There's some that have had no appointments, and that was a known quantity because maybe that council member had a job, and it was really difficult for them to meet not only the needs of a council member, but also to tack on the needs and the time commitment of a liaison was extra taxing. And so council understood that, and so one or two council members may have picked up one or two. The key is when I'm going through these, and when you're looking at this, if you have already probably given some thought on what liaison you'd like to be an advisory to, is what is your passion? What would you like to learn more about? What would you really want to get involved with to be that council liaison? When we're talking about council liaison, the role of council liaison is not to be an active participant on the advisory committee. Let's just say, let's take art, our Committee on Public Art. A council liaison is really there to help facilitate improvements of communication between the advisory committee and the city council. If city council has a special project for an advisory committee, that council liaison, along with the staff member, is supposed to go there and help explain what the council's looking for and council's desire for them to start to work on a project. Or let's say an advisory committee is working on something and council realizes that, you know what, that's being focused on over here, or maybe that's not a road that they should go down because it's already been discussed at the council level. Council could say, hey, that's a great idea, but actually we're tackling that. It's going to be on our agenda in a month and a half from now. So that's something we'll be taking on, and if we need any input from you, we'll make sure to get that, and we'll have that brought forward to you. So it's an opportunity for you to give council's perspective on things, to make sure that the advisory committees are tracking appropriately to what you believe council's desires are, but not to be an active participant in there, but to be a voice to help improve communication. So we'll take the first one here, Bikeways and Walkways Committee. So the purpose is to implement the non-motorized chapter of the Master Transportation Plan, to seek input from the community, coordinate and disseminate information for public education about biking and walking routes and rules, and to serve as a resource and advisory group regarding bike and pedestrian trails for the city and the county. Current liaison is Councilor Pell. They meet the second Tuesday of each month at noon. Questions on bike and ped?
I got a question in general.
Yeah.
Just kind of going back to your role of the liaison, is it kind of protocol or procedure, like, as being a liaison to these committees, do they often, or is there ability for them to reach out to you during that meeting for consult as liaison?
Yes.
Or is it just more of an observation role?
No, they're there as a consult. They're there. Hey, what do you? They can ask. Hey, do you think council would be interested in us moving this direction, or tackling this topic? And
so it is a bit of a little bit more interaction instead of just sitting in the crowd.
Yeah, you're not just
sitting in the crowd. That's the point I'm trying to get to.
But you're not like saying, I want this art here. If you're like, and you let them do their thing, and you're like, oh yeah, that sounds like that'd be a great project, and I'll make sure I keep council updated on it.
Okay, that gives me a better understanding. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to know, so sometimes it said 2 people could be on the committee, or like we're seeing now, is that just one person delegated to each committee?
Primarily, we've designated in your advisories one. Sometimes we have an alternate, especially if someone might have some time constraints and it's a known time constraint, but it's ultimately council's decision on if you want liaisons and how many liaisons you actually want. But I think one is usually a good practice. So the Committee on Public Art, this provides Grants Pass City Council with information pertaining to public art. It creates opportunity for the placement of art in public locations. It promotes collaboration between city departments, artists, architects, developers, and property owners. This liaison position is vacant, so if art is a passion of yours, you may want to put your hat in for this one. And the time and date of these meetings is the second Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Moving on to Historical Buildings and Sites Commission. To review any proposed alterations to any historic district or designated structure in the urban growth boundary to promote the community's historic preservation, to advise other interested agencies on matters related to historic preservation, to identify areas of archaeological significance and buildings of historic or archaeological significance, and to act as the loan review body for historic renovation loans. The Historical Buildings and Sites Commission also does serve sort of as a commission. They do have some quasi-judicial power, sort of like the Planning Commission when it comes to development within those districts. The current liaison is Councilor King, and they meet the second Thursday at 5:15 p.m. Our next one is our Parks Advisory Committee. The purpose is to review and make recommendations related to the needs and locations of new parkland, trail locations, park planning, allocation of recreational resources between users, preservation of park resources, and funding. The current liaison is Councilor King. There's two for Councilor King already. Time and date, second Thursday at 3:30 p.m.
Victoria has a question.
I know that I went through these, and I'm wondering if everyone else did too, just in the interest of saving a little bit of time. Is there anybody who needs them read through again, or can we just jump to assignments? That's my question. Thanks.
If it is the consensus of the council that they are fully educated on these committees and you want to move forward to assigning a liaison for the vacant positions and or change the liaison to the current positions. So we got a little question on the table. Rob, you've got a question?
Well, I'm okay with moving forward with the assignments if everyone else feels they've had they understand the situation. There's a couple things I wanted to add first, and Joel and Rick could, disagree with me, but if they want, I'd be curious to hear what they have to say. But it's been, my sense is that none of the newer councilors really have any idea what to expect here. So to try to describe that, you could go, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rick or Joel, you could sometimes go 2 or 3 months, 2 or 3 meetings with the commission or the committee, not having any questions for the counselor that's there, quite frankly. You could go months with no interaction whatsoever. You're just an observer. They always will, almost always, in my experience, they almost always ask you if you've got anything to say. And often you will have nothing to say because it's kind of, they're focusing on whatever goals they've had, sometimes working on them for years, and it's got really very little to do with a counselor at that point. The other thing I'd also say is, often when they ask a question, you may be able to answer it, but you also have to understand that you're one of 8 counselors, and you may not be able to answer it for that reason because you're not speaking for the whole council. The last point that I'd like to make, so in other words, this is not a real, we'll say, high-intensity activity for a counselor. It can be helpful to the committee, or the commission. But what I would say is that the liaisons used to be, in my opinion, a lot more necessary or valuable. For instance, when I was on a commission back in 2005 or 6 or something, our council liaison for 4 years never showed up once, not one time. And back then, that was a problem, because at that time, we didn't make it clear until about 3 to 4 years ago, that the staff liaison, who's at that meeting, it's their responsibility to communicate any motions that committee makes back to the council and the rest of the staff. So in other words, it used to be the counselor liaison's responsibility to communicate the strongest points that were made in that meeting. We now made it very clear, and staff has embraced it, that it's the staff liaison's person to, again, communicate any motions that the committee makes. So if a committee had no liaison there at a given meeting, or even a committee had no liaison, for the whole year, theoretically, the staff liaison is communicating the most important aspects of what went on in that committee. That didn't used to be the case. So council liaison was, in my opinion, very important until about 4 years ago, when we made sure that it now became clear that it's the staff's responsibility to communicate those things. So if we have a committee, and one of the small correction I'd like to make to it, Aaron said, he said some of the councilors may have had more than one committee. I think Joel and Valerie probably had about 6 each, right? I mean, how many did you have, Joel?
No, I don't know, like 6.
Yeah, Joel, so, for real, like I'm not using hyperbole. So there were some that had 6. I only had 1. That's all I could really fit in. And probably some years, someone may have had none. But if one of these committees or commissions, committee more likely, if one of the committees doesn't have a council liaison, because the staff it's now clear that the staff needs to communicate that as part of their job, it's not, in my opinion, the end of the world if one of these committees goes without a liaison. But, Rick or Joel could have a different opinion. But
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate that input, because that's
Yeah.
actually telling, because you guys have experienced this before. It's a good transfer of information. I got Joel and Rick here arguing. I'll take Joel first.
I would add to what Rob said, these are volunteers. They're investing their time, and they deserve to be heard and to be effective. So when I'm a liaison there, I try to help them succeed and align with the city goals that we have, because they don't make policy. They're not a policy-making body, but they're volunteers, and it's very frustrating from their perspective if the liaison doesn't show up, because they figure nobody cares and I'm not making any difference, so why am I here?
So you're saying it is more of like a courtesy outreach to these committees that know that they're supported by us. Okay. Rick?
I also agree with the comments that Rob and Joel have made. I've made it a purpose to attend the committees I've been on, to interact with them. I've been careful not to, I want to say, as Aaron expressed, that we're not there to give them direction per se, but I think we're there to give understanding 2 ways. One, if has already been expressed, if they have something they want to bring to City Council, to make sure that we as a liaison understand what we're bringing forward, but also that the request is reasonable. If it's not reasonable, many times I've said, if you're bringing it to the council in that form, it's not going to go. You need to do this, that, and that by providing more information. So in many cases, when information is put together, I want to have a full understanding of what's being presented. So I do ask a lot of questions, so I have that understanding, so that to know what they want to do and where we're headed. Thank you.
Rob?
So one other point I'd like to make too, with when Joel says that the committees want to feel like they're being listened to, they're important, or all that, I think that all of them really appreciate and are very focused on the time they get to present during, we'll say, strategic planning, when they take their, because they have meetings, they'll have their goals for the year or what they perceive as being important, and they like being able to present that to the council. and whatever challenges or experiences they've had in the prior year, whatever they look at it as being future things, and they like the feedback or knowing that the council has actually heard what their perspective is. I think that goes a long way to valuing what the committees and the commissions do.
Andrea?
So may I ask what happened 3 years ago Rob, that you felt it turned over more to the staff than the liaison? I'd like to just understand why that changed.
Okay, I'm not going to say that it was a line of demarcation, that it was finally that the councilors actually requested and essentially told Aaron that we want it to be staff's responsibility to report on what goes on in these meetings, because sometimes there would still be gaps in the communication, especially if a committee didn't have a liaison, or if liaison couldn't make it. There's been a few times this year when I just have not been able to make Tuesday at 12 o'clock. I try to, that's a part of my schedule, I try to block out, or I try to work around, but I don't always. But there were times when things absolutely slipped through the cracks or there was no communication. So we basically made it a policy that it's the staff liaisons person to communicate the motions. If a committee makes a motion, which doesn't even happen very often, but if they do, there's no way for that to get through, or almost no way for that to get through the cracks. So we just made it clear that we wanted to make sure that the communication was more solid.
Joel?
Little bit different topic. I think it is valuable to know when the committees meet so that before we decide who's on what committee, because you may have a personal conflict with that meeting time. Or there's a time maybe that you're available and it works out really well. But if we don't go through the committees and when they meet, we won't know that. So I think that's valuable. And it's in our pamphlet.
We actually got a handout.
Yeah.
Okay, Indra?
And I would like to suggest that the current counselors who are already on a committee, if they so choose to stay on that committee, I think that's important. And as long as no one has objections, I think the continuity would be good.
Kathleen?
Well, I was just going to say that you, Joel, are on one that I was interested in, but we could negotiate that, I guess. It doesn't say that there could be two on there, but it's kind of my...
I have no problem with that, and I think diversity and change is also healthy. So if you're interested in something, please voice it. You all have talents to share with people as well.
So I'm taking it from the sentiment of the majority here is that you just kind of want to go in through and start assigning these committees. So at this point, unless there's a major objection, if not, we're going to proceed. So let's start with the committees that already have liaisons and verify if they want to stay. So I'm just going to run off the packet here and take over if that's okay with you, sir. Perfect.
Your meeting, definitely.
Okay. So the first one in our packet was the Bikeways and Walkways Committee. Currently, liaison is Rob Pell. Rob, do you have a desire to stay or go? Does anybody else have a desire to join Rob? Okay, next one. Committee for Public Art, that is a vacant position. It is meeting the second Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Do we have any volunteers to take up that liaison position for public art? I see nobody at this point. Rick?
I guess I might like to do that one. Let me look at here. That's Tuesday at 5:30. Okay, if nobody else, I don't need to take it, so if somebody else wants it, but I'm willing to consider that.
I don't see anybody jumping forward, so at this point in time, let's let you take it over then, Rick. So
Okay.
we'll write you in for public art. The Committee for Historical Buildings and Site Commissions is currently liaison by Joel King. Joel, do you have a desire to stay with this?
On that commission, I would like to stay with it unless somebody is really interested in it. It's a history in our downtown area, and there's a lot of technical knowledge associated with it also.
Perfect. Joel, we'll keep you with that. It is meeting the second Thursday at 5:15. Is there anybody that would like to join Joel in that? Seeing none, we'll go forward. Joel, you will stay with that committee. Thank you. Oh. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, sorry, I should have spoken up. Yeah, I'm interested. It sounds, I'm into the historical aspect of things. I'm
Perfect.
interested in joining Joel if that's good.
Excellent. Thank you, and I apologize if I overlooked you.
No, that's my fault. I should have spoken up. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to Park Advisory Committee, currently liaison by Joel King. This one meets the second Thursday at 3:30 p.m. First off, Joel, do you want to stick with this Parks Advisory Committee?
You know, I've been on there a while, and I think it would be good to have some diversity on there if somebody's interested. It's a great committee. They have a good history associated with it. And it would be a good committee to be a liaison to.
Perfect, so that leaves it open here. Does anybody want to join the Parks Advisory Committee to be a liaison for us? Seeing none, then I'm going to ask if you could stick with it, Joel?
I would be honored.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next committee is the Tourism Advisory Committee. Currently, it has no liaison. It will meet the first Tuesday at 4 p.m. Does anybody have any interest in being the liaison for Tourism Advisory Committee? Indra? Okay, so we'll put Indra in there unless anybody else wants to join her. If not, perfect. We're moving on. The Urban Tree Advisory Committee is currently a liaison by Joel King. It meets the second Monday at 6:30 p.m. I don't know. I mean, I think Joel's like the least experienced person for this committee, Mr. Treeboy. No, that was actually an underrooted compliment because I know you've served a lot with the Forestry Service. Would you like to stick with that, sir?
I would, but I'd also be willing to share it, or not even share it. I would be willing to give it up if someone else has a passion in that area, because it's good to have diversity.
Perfect. So we have an offer on the table to either join Joel or take it over completely. Is there any interest in the Urban Tree Advisory Committee? Seeing none, we'll leave it to you, Joel. Thank you very much. Our next committee is the Josephine County Addictions, Mental Health, Public Health Advisory Committee. This is currently being liaison by Joel King. It meets the second Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Joel, do you wish to continue with this Josephine County Addiction, Mental Health, Public Health, and Advisory Committee?
So they meet quarterly. This is a little different committee. It's a joint committee with the county. So you are a voting member. And you have all the other nonprofits around the table along with the county health department. And it's a really good, vigorous discussion, and I've learned a lot about what goes on that I would not have known otherwise. Because there's a lot going on, as for those of you that have worked in the field. If no one else wants it, I think there's some very qualified members here that would be of
I agree with you,
service.
Joel. I think we have a member here that is very adversely advised, and I think that she would either take that over for you or join you.
You know, she can take it over, but make sure you vote. Okay? You have a vote.
So not to speak for you, Kathleen, are you willing to take that liaison? Excellent, thank you. So we'll put Kathleen as that, and then Joel will let you relieve your duties on that one. Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Okay, so the next one that we have on the list here is MRMPO, Mid-Rogue Metropolitan Planning Organization. So this one looks like it has a couple vacancies in it. Rick Riker seems to be listed and Jason as the alternate. It says this one meets the third Thursday at 2:30 p.m. First, Rick, are you wanting to stick with this one?
Not really. It'd be nice to have some new faces in there. Thank you.
Perfect. So you got it open for, this is the Mid-Rogue Metropolitan Planning Organization. Kathleen. It looks like there is 2 vacancies listed on here, so anybody else like to join Kathleen?
Just to be clear,
Yes, sir.
where, some of those, and this one in particular, you might want to say where they meet.
We can do that. I will default to Aaron because I don't know where they meet. Actually, Rick, you know where they meet.
They meet in that room that's over there and, forget what the name of it is.
The Ridge Room, it's one of our
So
conference.
they meet in Grants
right
Pass.
here.
I guess
Yeah,
is
they
my
meet here at
point.
City Hall.
Just, they meet in Grants Pass, because there's some of these that don't meet in Grants Pass, is that correct? So you might want to point that out.
Yeah, I think that goes into the end here where they're actually optional ones, so we weren't, we'll try to point out as much information as possible. So if we do miss anything, thank you, please bring that up. So this one here, Metropolitan Planning Organization, we still have another vacancy. Anybody want to volunteer for that? Seeing none, and Rick, you said you're willing to stay with that? Nope, okay. So we still have a vacancy on that. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, if council chooses and they don't have another appointee, we can appoint another staff member to that committee. It's important that we do fill all the vacancies because those are voting positions and they bring money for transportation projects to Grants Pass.
Okay, so Jason has said that we would fill that position with a staff member if nobody else is interested. Currently, we have Kathleen interested in that. Rick does not want to proceed forward, so we have 1 council member. Anybody else? Seeing none, Jason, can you please appoint another staff member?
I'll actually bring that back to you at a future council meeting. You guys have to do the appointment and then that goes to the MPO, but we'll get it in front of you ASAP.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so the next here on the list is the Solid Waste Agency. This is current liaisons are Rick Riker, Bradley Clark, and I'm going to mispronounce it, Kira. And then this one meets third Tuesday at 3 p.m. Rick, are you willing to stick with this one?
Yes, I'd like to stick with it.
Okay, is there anybody else that's interested in joining with Rick or no? Sounds good. Perfect. Rick will stay with that. I appreciate it. Okay, so we have So Ready, which is Southern Oregon Regional Economic Development, Inc. There is a vacancy in this. Doesn't look like anybody's assigned to it currently. It meets the second Tuesday at 3 p.m. Does say it varies from time to time, so that could be something in contention. But anybody interested in Southern Oregon Regional Economic Development? Victoria. Anybody else interested as a passion project? No, sounds good. Perfect. Thank you. Victoria will be a new liaison for that. Okay, so it says the following committees are optional for the council to attend. So this would be the liaison for the school district number 7. There is a vacancy. It is prefaced that these are optional. The school district number 7 meets the second Tuesday at 5 p.m. and the fourth Tuesday at 5 p.m. So it looks like twice a month at 5 p.m. Anybody interested in being a liaison for the city to School District 7? Indra?
I'm very interested in being a liaison. I can't guarantee I would make all of the meetings, but I would try to make as many as I could.
I think an important point of these that you're talking about here is, like the mayor said, these are more voluntary in nature. They are not advisory committees to you. This is something that council established in previous years where they're like, we would like to have a council member attend the school board meetings so we can be kept apprised of things. So if you're not able to make every one of those meetings, there's not a hard set issue on that, because they're not actually advising us.
Which is duly noted, but I'm going to actually say I'm all for us reaching out to all organizations that we possibly can to get that network of information back to us and everybody here. Victoria, you had a question or statement?
I was going to say Indra will be excellent for that. And Indra, when you can't make them, I am willing to be put on as your backup.
Perfect, we will note that. Okay, sorry, got to turn the page. The next one, again, these are optional, but the next one on the docket here is the Josephine County Emergency Management Commission. It looks like it meets the third Tuesday at 1 p.m. quarterly. There is a current vacancy on this. Does anybody have interest in the Josephine County Emergency Management Committee? Joel, question statement?
Yes, I do, because I got a good background in that with emergency management in my job for the last 35 years. So.
Perfect. Anybody else interested in joining Joel? Seeing none, thank you. Next one is Rogue Valley Area Commission on Transportation. This one meets second Tuesday at 9 a.m. every month. There is a vacancy here. Is anybody interested in the Rogue Valley Area Commission on Transportation? Kathleen? Perfect. Anybody else interested? Seeing no hands, thank you. Looks like our last one here on the list is the Rogue Valley Council of Governments. There's a vacant position here. This meets the fourth Wednesday at 12 p.m. So this one says Rogue Valley. Where does this one meet, Aaron?
Usually at Central Point.
Okay. So with all that information in hand, is there anybody interested in the Rogue Valley Council of Governments? Victoria? Okay. You are duly noting that that will be travel. Perfect. Okay, anybody else interested in that? Seeing none, thank you. So we've gone through all the committees that we have here. We've gone through the alternate committees. I believe we are settled. Is there any more discussion or questions about any of the committees that we've discussed so far or the appointments? And I'm drawing this out because I'm reading to make sure that I didn't miss anything.
Clint,
One second. Okay. Sorry, Rob, go right ahead.
I just wanted to make sure that, did you mean to overlook yourself for volunteering for any of those committees, or was that just an accident?
No, I did not overlook myself to volunteer. I gave you guys an opportunity to, and, you know, I can reconsider that, but I did not overlook myself.
You were volunteered for one.
Kathleen.
So when do we find out where the meetings are being held? Is it that because it's not listed on here?
We'll be getting a hold of you and letting you know where and when and everything. And also, Mayor, you are on one committee. It's the LIPSIC. That appointment is mayor only.
Okay, I guess I have one. One of the ones I would be absolutely interested in, and I apologize to not overlook myself. I was actually focused on giving you guys attention with that. I would probably join Victoria with the So Ready organization. I do have a passion for urban development and growth, and I actually have a correspondence with the guys that are running So Ready right now. So you can put me on for that one. And again, last moment, any questions or discussions about committees and liaisons? Not seeing any. We will go into, does staff have any questions for us on that?
Just on the So Ready one, I think ultimately there's one position that's open for that, and so you would need to choose one individual. You may be able to have an alternate, but we usually don't, on the So Ready board, we usually don't have alternates, so you just pick one to be appointed to the So Ready board.
Okay. Well, I'll allow Victoria to take over if she so desires. If you don't, then I can take over for you. Your choice.
It seems like you know people on there. I mean, I wasn't trying to, it's okay with me if you take it.
Okay. I guess you can put me on that then. Yeah, and I wasn't going to take it from you. I was just focusing on you guys getting spread out there. So, okay. I think that topic is to rest, so let's go into the agenda review.
So for the agenda review, we'll start out with, does anybody have any questions about the next agenda? Do you have any requests that you want to post immediately, or do you desire us to do a brief go ahead, Kathleen?
Yeah, I want to get on there ASAP. Do we do motions or?
No,
we
just what you'd
I
want
want
to
to
do.
address the strategic planning retreat that supposedly is coming up.
Strategic plan, yeah, so you would just mention that you're interested in having a workshop discussion on on strategic planning. And then depending on what you might want to have, I would, and if enough council's like yes, then the mayor usually says, yes, we'll put it on the agenda. Sometimes a council member will bring something up, and I may interject and say, that might be more efficient for a memo, and sometimes we'll be able to take care of those requests through a memo process. It all depends on what kind of information you're seeking.
Okay, so first, we're going to table that topic for 1 second here. Let's, everybody has an agenda in front of you. January 13th through, looks like March 17th is actually listed on here. If anybody's perused this in the past and has any questions or comments specific to this agenda that's set forth, please bring them forward now. Any questions or comments?
And Mayor, one of the things that is helpful for us from a staff perspective is, especially on these meetings where we've got Monday meeting and then a workshop on Wednesday, if you just take a look at and you're perusing the January 15th meeting, which you have your packet now, but after you've reviewed your packet, if there's some specific questions or you're like, oh man, I'm not sure, and you hadn't had an opportunity to reach out to me to get clarifying questions, this would be an opportunity for you to say, hey, yeah, I would like to have more information on this item on the January 15th meeting. Or you may look at something on the consent calendar and you may say, you know, I'd really like to have a special presentation on this consent calendar item. Can we do that? That would be another opportunity. So that just provides us with making sure we give you the information you need to make an informed decision on that Wednesday night. If there's anything that's missing from the packet or you need more of, this would be a great time to let us know if you haven't already reached out to me.
And I thank Aaron for that insight and the help. I am a little bumbling through this a little bit, and I apologize if there's any missteps. So at this point, yeah, if there's any recommendations for the specifically for the January 15th meeting or any questions on the agenda, it would be proper time to pose that. Rob, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I'd like Wednesday night items H and I removed from the consent, and I'm just looking for a very, very brief overview from staff, not an in-depth presentation.
So just to clarify, items H and I on the consent agenda are resolution to enter into a 3-year labor contract with the Grants Pass Police Association, and I was resolution amending the comprehensive fee schedule for required adjustments. So those two items have been requested to have a small presentation and stay on the agenda, Cassandra, and stay where they are, but have a special presentation. Is that correct? I'm just clarifying.
Aaron would have to, once they're pulled off consent, do they go back on consent, Aaron?
Yeah, it's a good question, Councilor. So in the past, we've had some council members what we call star an agenda item, a consent item. So that means if it's starred, we'll just do a presentation. Sometimes some council members have also requested, I want the starred items to be voted on separately from the consent calendar, but still, so you'd be voting on them differently. You wouldn't be treating them as a council action item on the agenda. You'd just be treating them still as a consent, but you'd have basically 3 consent items. You'd have the 2 that you'd polled that you wanted voted on separately, plus then your regular consent. So, Councilor Pell, I'm not sure if you.
I'm not asking to have them become a council action item.
Oh.
A very small clarification.
So it sounds like all Councilor Pell is wanting is just those 2 items starred. So we'll do a brief presentation on those 2 items. They'll still be part of the consent calendar.
So perfect. So for clarification for us going forward, when you request a start item for the consent agenda, that is to basically keep it on the consent agenda, but you get a little bit more information, maybe a small presentation before it's voted upon. And that's what we're going to do with H and I as requested by Rob. Is there anybody that doesn't want to do that? Sound good? Indra?
Can I request we throw G in there too? It seems to go with it, kind of.
Okay, G is resolution authorizing the city manager enter into a 3-year labor contract with GPPA, the police association. So that is, okay, I'm not seeing the difference between the two. Oh, sergeants versus the police associations for sergeants versus the police association, is that the difference?
Yeah, they
Two different
are
contracts,
two different contracts. And when you're making a request for a start item, if there's also something specific that you want us to hit on, let us know and we'll make sure we hit that in the presentation also.
So with Rob's request and Indra's request together, it looks like we could star items G, H, and I.
Okay, certainly.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments, and let's stick with January 15th, our first meeting here. Does anybody have any comments or questions about agenda for the 15th? Victoria.
I think that it has been added, but I don't see it on here. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. We needed to add, and in an email I was told it was added back in, that we need to vote for chair.
On here, it's on here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's highlighted in, oh, yeah, on the schedule we're looking at here, it is highlighted that you will be electing, one of your first motions will be doing an election of council president, and at that time, you may also want to do a vice president. Currently, right now, we have a president and vice president, if you so desire to continue that, but for sure, you have to do at least the president role.
Any other questions or concerns about agenda for 15th? Victoria?
Well, you might have wanted this to come after this discussion, so I think that it's important to clarify when we are going to hear about the strategic planning contract. It is my understanding, and I could be wrong, that some of that has to happen by the end of July, some of those contracts. And so, if so, it's actually very important that it get on the agenda for Wednesday night.
Yes, I think ultimately, because there is a time frame, I'm already working on the strategic plan scheduled for February 13th. So if council's wanting to do something different or go in a different direction, getting that information sooner than later would be very advantageous for me. And so, Mayor, my suggestion would be that we maybe just do we'll publish an item under matters for mayor, council, and staff, just labeled strategic planning. Then I can take in any input council desires and we can go from there. And I think that's the appropriate way to put it on the agenda for Wednesday night.
So that starts the conversation Wednesday night and gives staff a little bit of direction. Is that understood?
Yeah, that's fine with me. So then there would be a presentation on, a short presentation on that?
Yeah, I'll do a brief presentation on what the scope of the work is and what, what we're trying to obtain.
Okay. Perfect. So I think we can put our next meeting to bed. Any other questions or comments on the preceding agenda through March 17th that listed on this paper? Rob.
Yeah, I think that this would be, it was really beneficial for me when I got this training, and I think it would be really beneficial for the new counselors, especially since at the meeting the other night, if I heard correctly, we actually had a citizen who, I'm going to use the word threatened armed action if the homeless were back in the parks. And the active shooter training I thought was really helpful for me. That's when just so people know, it's when the police chief in an executive session comes in and actually explains kind of the nuts and bolts of what he would expect and what would be smart if we ever had an active shooter come in here. And I thought it was helpful. I probably, if it was at the end of a workshop, I probably wouldn't attend because I've seen it. But I think it would probably be helpful for the others. And if we go ahead and do that, Chief, one thing that I found that still sticks in my mind was there was a video that you showed last time, I believe it was of a school board in Florida, and it was kind of like everything not to do in that active shift. If you remember the one I'm talking about, I can describe it to you later, but.
Yeah, no, I don't off the top of my head, but I'm already thinking about our teammates, our SWAT commander and the group of folks we have that probably did that training.
Right.
That would be
That video
excellent.
was really, it was very impactful, I would say. But anyway, I would recommend that we get that on the agenda. Anyway, that's my thought.
Thank you, Rob. I actually echo Rob's sentiment. I'd like to get on an agenda sooner than later. Was there any more questions in regards to agenda? Victoria? Comments either?
Yes, it's a concern. Communications. We voted to close down J Street, and there were 2 of our council members who were put in the position where they were meeting the public and they had no idea that it had been extended. And so this must be addressed. So I would like to state that we want to know why it was extended, why we weren't informed, and then the complete and total status of that situation now. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you this, Aaron, do you want to address this in this portion, or do you want to put out something?
I think it's best addressed if we provide council with a council memo on this, and we can get that out this week easily within the next day or 2, providing additional information on closure process of resting sites.
Okay, Indra.
I just have a general question on, so workshops, so I spoke with Mayor Scherf about holding a workshop for businesses to come in, and I have an idea, and he requested that I put that in writing, and I will do that. When we request certain items for workshops, when can we expect that to be on the agenda? Like, does it take a month or 3 months, or how does that work?
You know, that's a great question. So sometimes if someone requests a workshop and based on, maybe there's a time associated with where it needs to be spoken about. Say, for instance, strategic planning. We need to talk about that sooner than later because we're in the process. If there wasn't something there, the normal process is it goes on the back of this form as a request for either a workshop or a request for a business meeting. And then during the agenda review period with the city manager, the mayor, and the council president, they'll go through and they'll figure out where the best place is to put these items on the agenda based on feedback from staff or feedback from council on, okay, this item is going to require us to about 2 weeks. Give us 2 weeks so we can get the information for you. This item could be, hey, we can have it next week if you wanted to, whatever it is, and how we fit it into the schedule. So with the mayor's direction and guidance and the council president and then the city manager trying to figure out workload perspective, how to put those on, that's how they're scheduled. If there's something that you want and you want it by a certain time frame, then we just need to be clear with regards to what our expectations are on the dais when we're putting those on there, and we'll make sure that that's put on there because there is also opportunities on here for timing on when you'd like to have it. So if you said, yeah, I want to have a workshop on whatever it may be, grants to small businesses, and I'd like to have it by the end of February, great. So we'd have timing must be by February, and we put it on there.
And to further answer the question, I think staff's going to work the best they possibly can to work it into the agendas. As you see this agenda list in front of you, some meetings are a little bit heavier than other meetings, and so we kind of have to, that does have an effect on timing on when we can jockey things around. Victoria?
I see that the 3rd and the 10th, it appears as though the workshop on the 3rd is open, and the 10th is urban tree, seems a little light, and then there's a holiday, and then so there was a request to have a comprehensive workshop on homelessness, And so I would like to know if that can be added to the 3rd or the 10th of February. Thank you.
So your request was received, and I actually advised the Aaron Town Manager. He presented that to me and divulged that the previous council had a pretty extensive workshop on that. I asked him to distribute that literature to everybody and get your input. So basically my idea is if you could review this information and see if it's helpful to go over that, expand on it, give us a little bit more direction in some of the information that's already there that can be represented. But we'd need a little bit of feedback from you guys on that before we can tailor that. Even if you want to say, I want to go over the exact same things, that's great. There's probably, I guess, digest some of the information and there's other things you can add to it, is kind of where my sentiment was coming from.
That was, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if you recognize me or not.
No, I did. Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
I pushed my button off.
Oh, sorry. That information was received and there was information given back. So, yeah, I need to hear back about that. Probably from Aaron.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at this point, as my email correspondence mentioned, today would be the day I recommended that today during agenda review, you bring this item up to see if there's enough council members that are interested in having a charrette or some kind of workshop associated with unhoused services within the community. And if that is the desire of council, then, and it's placed on the agenda or workload, we will make sure that we get that done. So that would be the first step, and then maybe have a general discussion. Maybe you'd like to have a general discussion, Councilor, on what your ultimate goal is for that, so council will have an understanding of what your request is, and then we move forward. We move forward once I get direction from council.
So I guess this opens up the table for that discussion. If everybody has had an opportunity to digest that information and provide responses back to Aaron, that is great. So if you want to open up this discussion at this point to further tailor this meeting, then go right ahead. Victoria.
Well, I would like to move that we have that workshop on homelessness on February the 10th. And then I can add what the expectation was there, or maybe we just need to vote that is going to happen on the 10th?
So February 10th, we don't have a meeting. Are you wanting to have a special meeting on February 10th?
Oh, excuse me. So it's just the 3rd in February, is that correct?
Yeah, the 3rd is our
Sorry.
first workshop in advance of the February 5th meeting.
So then I amend my motion. It would have to be the workshop on February the 3rd, be the workshop on homelessness. And I move that happens.
I'm going to ask a question to Aaron. Aaron, in receiving responses from councilors that have digested the previous information presented, do you feel you have enough direction to establish a proper presentation?
I think at this point, Council Marshall and I had a conversation. I think we both recognize the depth and the breadth of this topic, and it could ultimately be multiple sessions at some point in time, however we want to focus this. So I want to make sure that expectations are very clear on what the purpose of the meeting is, who might attend. I can make sure to know that we get the right people at the table, but the purpose of it or the focus of either the first 1, 2, or 3 sessions or what we're having is going to be really key to me, so we make sure we're hitting the target. And I need that from council. I need council to tell me what type of information you're wanting or what you're wanting to get out of this workshop, and I can help you tailor that. So when it comes to unhoused services in the community, what would be important information for you to have so you can make informed decisions in the future on potential unhoused policies?
So there does look to be still a lack of direction, so would anybody want to elaborate on that? Kathleen?
Oh, my thing's still on. Yeah, so 2 things come to mind right away with that, and that was the police enforcement. You know, if we could hear a little bit about that and, how this is going to unfold I'd like to know more about that. And then putting up signs. I'd like more signs around the community, in the parks, on the streets, where there's not going to be any, so it's clear that there's no camping, there's no car camping, there's, that kind of thing. Does that help?
That does. The sign thing is, I think, secondary to that. We do have signs, and one of the things we work on for signs, and we've touched on this from a public perspective, and I don't want to get off topic, but I think that's a very specific action that would maybe come out of something like this. So what I'm looking for is the bigger picture. What information are you wanting us to hit? What feedback, community input are you needing? And we'll get the right people at the table for you so you can get that information.
Victoria.
As a starting point, and this email went out to Aaron and Mayor, the objectives to gather insights and innovative ideas from these entities, which are local agencies, including police and fire, businesses, nonprofits, and experts, to gather insights and innovative ideas from these on solving homelessness. And second, to explore opportunities and solutions for measurable and meaningful impact, to identify actions, if any, the city can take to affect solvency for homelessness, to maximize public safety. The action items that were sent to Mayor and Aaron were to identify, one, to identify the participants and coordinate with local agencies. And there's a little more there, but the interest of time, I'll truncate this. 2, scheduling, determine a date and a time that maximizes attendance from both council members and presenters. And public notification. Ensure the workshop is publicized to encourage community involvement in both participation and attendance, and to ensure transparency. To document, prepare a summary for council focusing on each presenter's actionable ability to solve homelessness. Understanding it's not going to be solved, but solvency is the purpose of this workshop. And then I asked that the deadline for the workshop be within 30 days, and that was dated January the 7th. So those were some specifics that were, and maybe that will help the rest of the councilors here now. And just to reiterate, I think I had a motion on the table. I don't know if a second was called for. Thank you.
Okay, so in my opinion, it's still vague. It's still in general. I mean, you're talking about, I understand where you're going with this, but what I'm trying to get out of this is, are there specific things that you want to have presented? Do you want to, I mean, I understand what your actions are and where you're trying to get to, but it just seems very, very vague in what you're trying to capture. I mean, it could be a 15-hour meeting trying to figure out ways to combat homelessness. I mean, we have certain actions that can help us and that cannot help us within this community, such as my idea would be, when I'm thinking about this, is how many nonprofits are in the area, specific kind of topics on how we get to this, what do they do, how much resources do they have. Me personally, I'm listening to what your request is, and it just seems very, very vague. I wouldn't know how to turn around here and advise staff on how to actually pinpoint all that stuff. And I'm not saying these statements to be derogatory. I'm not gathering the specific agenda item that you're asking staff to present, except for the topic of homelessness.
Very quickly, there was an email back and forth between Aaron and myself that we do not want to know how many, I'm not speaking for anyone else. I don't think that the council needs to know how many services there are for homeless people, because that's a 4-page document and we all have it. So it was these other things. So I guess it was my expectation that in the process of the email back and forth that it generated more, but again, I think Indra had, so I don't want to take any more time.
Indra?
I guess I would specifically ask, I know the police are out there doing a great job and a lot of counseling, and so I would specifically like to know what options that they're giving people, and so those are the people I would like to see, because you're specifically, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, giving them options of where to go or what they can do, and so I would like to see what those options are and have those people at the table, and specifically the organizations that are able to house people, to provide treatment beds, to provide what those services are, the specific items.
Rob, you were wanting to speak, or?
No, I was just, well, actually, primarily I was going to agree that until Indra just spoke, that there was really virtually nothing very specific or concrete that staff could focus on. But the other thing that I would hope for is that, and I don't know where we are, has everyone actually watched that video? And if they have and been prepared to discuss this, what specifically was not addressed in that video that needs to be addressed? Because there would be no little purpose in wasting our time and money going over things that are there potentially in the video. So if everyone's watched the video, we can make an intelligent suggestion as to what's not in the video and still needs to be discussed. But and so anyway, again, more specificity, just like you were saying.
Rick, or I mean, sorry, Joel, you had your hand up for a second.
Well, it's not uncommon when you have a change in a group that you make a decision by step 10, and then some are at 2, some are at 8 or whatever. And so what I hear, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but they want to know what's gone on up to this point in time and then need some additional information beyond that. And they do know a lot about what's gone on up to this point in time. One of the things I was going to suggest was, Kathy, do I have that right? Kathleen, excuse me, I'm sorry. When you go to that committee, ask everybody what they're doing and bring it back here. And I think you'll be really surprised. But that's the purpose of that committee, to function, and they actually can serve us as well.
Thank you, Joel. Just 1 second. So I personally don't know, I can't grasp the bullet points of what the request is exactly. Do you have a better idea than I do, or do we need to be continuing with more discussion?
Well, I think what I'm hearing is that there is a desire by some on council to have a workshop to gather information on truly what are some potential solutions for some of the issues that we have out there when it comes to the unhoused. We do have that video that we sent out, which was similar in nature, but is it ripe to redo that and have a new discussion on that? Are there new players in the field, and has the external environment changed to a certain degree? And I don't fault any council members for wanting to have that discussion. I think it's very healthy. I just want to make sure that I've got clear direction from council on what my focus should be, because we as staff want to hit the target, and we can only hit the target if we're very clear on what the expectations are. So it could be as simple as, we would like to have an opportunity to sit down and have a dialogue with the service providers for the unhoused in the community, and we want them to tell us what their challenges are and if they have any additional potential solutions. And that could be the workshop, and then we go and we take it another step further. I think if we try to have, at this point, one workshop, unless it's very focused, like what we were talking about, I want to know how police enforce, and I want to know where they, what information they provide and what solutions they have. That's an easy, very specific topic we could hit on. The other one is relatively big, Mayor, like you were saying, like Council Perry was saying, it's pretty big. So if you want to start somewhere, maybe we start and then we can narrow it in and keep narrowing it down. But if you want to do something, you want it done, and then I'd maybe suggest having as many service providers as possible in here to talk about their, and it'd be a similar thing to what we did back in 22. Where they would come in and they would try to provide us with solutions, or many of them already have solutions or things that are working for them. They may want to report on that. But that's going to be a long workshop if you keep it that general. I mean, if there's 8 service providers out there and they all want to talk about their services for an hour, that could be a long day. So we're struggling a little bit because we want to know what is your end result? What would you like as an end result? And maybe we can get there. If we start with the ends, with the end first, and what you want to have as your, then we can maybe figure out how to get there.
And I'm going to say this is, I absolutely appreciate your passion and your dedication to this topic. I just didn't have a full understanding exactly where we were going, and I kind of felt that from staff. So if we could tailor it down a little bit better, that would be the time to do this in this discussion. And so if we can do that, and I apologize, I couldn't really pull up the full 5 ideas out of what you were saying. So let's dive into it a little bit more. I'll start with Indra, and then we'll go back to Victoria.
I would just add, so I would like to have the entities or organizations that are actually pulling people off the street and housing them or finding a place for them. Veterans, I would like to hear what the veteran organization here is doing, and mental health, like a representative from mental health, like what they're finding and how they are working to get the mentally ill off the street too. And then I appreciate, Joel, what you said, a point in time, like what's happening now. So I know there are some housing projects going on. I know On Track's got their thing building, so I would kind of like an update on specifically where those projects are now, when they're going to be completed, how many will be housed, and when.
I just want to get everybody in because I know we're going to go. Eric, did you want to say something before Victoria starts?
Yes, thank you. I'm just brainstorming here. I'm just thinking, surely we're not the only city going through this problem, this massive problem. My question is there any way that staff can look into and try to find some success stories out there, some best practices that other cities have done? Perhaps there's some, like I said, best practices to solving these issues. And there's got to be some nationwide with all of these different cities out there, obviously. We're not the only ones going through this, and going forward, I'm sure there's going to be many more. So that's my question. Is there anything that we can find nationwide? Is that out of the scope of the staff?
I'm going to let him answer in 1 second. This is exactly what our discussion is supposed to be about, and I appreciate this because, like I said, Victoria, I wasn't trying to discredit any of your passion in getting this going, but I just didn't feel like we had enough direction. I think this is perfect. So I'm going to let Aaron answer your question, then we'll go to Victoria.
Oh yeah, definitely. We've done best practices with most things we move forward with on what works in other communities, and there is some things that do work. No one has solved the problem in its entirety because it's very complex. But there are programs in place that have shown success and have had success numbers associated with them. And they're known and out there, and you don't have to go far to find those programs and to know what works. We can see it throughout Oregon on some areas, and what does help get people off the streets and give them a hand up.
Rob?
I'll send it again, but several weeks back, I sent to all the counselors video of a council meeting that we had, a workshop that we had. The date escapes me now, but it was in 21. We invited then Sergeant, now current Lieutenant Kirkpatrick from Medford PD. We invited people from Rogue Retreat, and there was a lot of information there. And I would hope that everyone has studied that thoroughly, because, and I've also mentioned, I think in that same email, that I also visited the facilities over in Medford, because there's a lot to learn there. I visited a facility in Roseburg, and there's a lot to learn there. There's a lot of things to learn that council could get up to speed on their own. And like I say, the video that I sent had a lot of information of that particular council meeting. The video that Aaron sent last week, there's also a lot of information on there. So if you've actually studied all of that and then have specific questions over and above that, that would probably be a good use of our time. If you haven't really studied those, essentially the wheel that, or the discussions that have already taken place here, to redo that again, it can be done, but it's not a great efficient use of our staff time, which of course means staff dollars, means council dollars, taxpayer dollars. It's kind of a waste of our taxpayer dollars to just go over what we've already done. So I would hope that, and I'll send that video out again of that meeting. There was a lot of information there. There's a lot of great ideas. But I would hope that council has done what it can do to get up to speed, and then at that point would also have know where you're still having questions or knowledge gaps, and then you can ask those specific questions. But to generally just throw it out there, you know, saying, hey, what's working across the entire country, we don't have to go that far to see what has been tried closer to home.
Cool. Thanks, Rob. I think Aaron wants to add something here.
Just want to mention that it may be beneficial, and we can set this up. We could set up, and again, for all of council, we could do a tour of Rogue Retreat and sit down with Sam Engel, their executive director, and he's more than happy to sit down with us. We could do a small bus ride down there or carpool down or whatever, and have a conversation with what works down in the Medford area and their continuum of service and how that plays out, what the costs are, and that operating program. And they're more than happy to share that. And that is a program that works and it's local, but that could be a good thing also.
Yeah, Sam totally likes us too. I mean, he showed up Friday night at our dinner, so I think he misses us, so we could probably go see him. Okay, Eric, you got another question, comment?
Yeah, just to follow up.
I got to get to Victoria.
Yeah, real quick here, just to follow up. Thank you, Rob, and everybody else for the input. What I want to focus in on, and I know that homelessness isn't just the problem. Homelessness is, the people are homeless mainly because of the drug issue. So when I said best practices, what are the best practices to focus in on the drug problem that a lot of the homeless have? Homelessness without the drugs is a solvable, hopefully somewhat of is an easier problem to solve than the drug issue. The drug issue is the problem. So that's what I'm trying to figure out is best practices there. If we just have people go to a homeless shelter or something, it's still not going to solve the problem with the drugs. So that's what I wanted to add. I wanted to make sure that we have the drug aspect of this included as well. So if that helps, draw it down a little bit. That's all I have.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, I'm going to give the floor back to Victoria because she's going to say, is everybody good? Okay, good. Victoria, go ahead.
So two things I think that would be manageable in a workshop would be, as Indra stated, would be our police response, so our local, tell us what the police can do, what the police need, and then also add just for Grants Pass. So we're talking solvency here for the problem that we have locally. The ability for local agencies or businesses to get people off the streets. So this workshop drilled down would be two things. It would be our police response or law enforcement response, which would include the courts too, I suppose. And then the opportunities right here locally that we have to get people off the streets. So those two things in this workshop.
Perfect. So I believe we're narrowed to a better theme here. I'm looking for acceptance.
So what I'm hearing is that council would like to have a workshop that includes two main focus points. One, our police enforcement and deflection opportunities and how we help people that are unhoused in our community, in association with having the ability to have a conversation with the service providers that provide services that ultimately house or provide treatment for individuals that are unhoused in our community.
I think we got a thumbs up, so that's pretty good. I would like to add to that in local law enforcement involvement in homeless. I particularly would like to be educated more on what type of specific ordinances are in place right now, specifically around two topics. One topic would be resting in the car overnight in the right-of-way. And I know there's certain industrial zones that we actually have some restrictions on overnight camping for RVs and trucks and trailers, as well as reiterate what the ordinances are as it pertains to drug use, paraphernalia, and so forth within the parks and public areas. The third thing would be what the law enforcement's latitude, ability to actually approach a person on the street. And I'm going to leave it in that much vague manner because I think Chief will understand where I'm trying to get with that.
Yes, we will try to address some of those things, and some of that, like the last one, we may need to be relatively general with some of that in nature, but we'll try to target those, and I've made notes on those three things.
Perfect. And is Victoria, are you amicable with some of the additions that I added there?
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. Kathleen, you have a question, comment?
Yeah, I just wondered if that would include what's going on at the jail, like how many beds there are, like I heard there was only, they had minimized one person to a room cell because of certain mandates, and then that the county side didn't have as much room, and so it's very foggy what's going on there.
I appreciate that. I think what you're kind of pointing out here is we can start just throwing layers upon layers on this cake, and that's where we can kind of, start chasing ourselves in the tail. I think that we should start with the generality that we have already on the place, and on the topic that you just talked. I'm taking the generality as you want to know what our police are doing currently and can do. We can expand on that once we get to more, once you get a little bit more information. I just think lumping everything in one little agenda meeting is basically kind of arguing what we were at the point where we were before this discussion, where we were too vague. So I think it's kind of more questions that you guys should put within your arsenal, so when you are in the middle of this, at the end of this presentation, you can have those questions loaded and ready to go. And then again, you have the opportunity at the end of that to say, hey, there's this one very, very interesting side of this that we've just talked about. I'd like more information, so let's go into another workshop. So I think we have a good starting point, unless you add something else. But those are kind of good questions I think you should keep in your arsenal and use that to expand once we start that workshop. Indra?
I understand what you're saying, of course. I think what Kathleen brought up is really critical to keeping our town safe and keeping criminals off the street, because I just read an article about someone who'd been arrested over 10 times and is still out on the street. So when Kathleen's talking about the jail, I think that's a pertinent part of our conversation, and I don't know what we can do about it, but I would like to see if there is anything we can do about that, is more funding for the jail. How do we work with the county to prosecute these petty criminals? Because that's a large portion of what's going on here. I mean, I just walked down Manzanita, Savage, beautiful neighborhood, graffiti all over the fence. This has never happened before. And so that criminal element, getting them off is so important. So if we can somehow put that into this workshop, I would like to see it.
I would have to concur with the mayor. I think we're talking about two totally separate subjects here. The law enforcement system for Josephine County is a system all in itself. When we're talking unhoused, we're not talking unhoused as they're criminals. We're talking unhoused as these are individuals that need assistance or need, and there's conduct associated with unhoused behavior that you sometimes see on the streets, that you're correct. But they're separate issues, and I don't think it would be appropriate to put those two together. I think the law enforcement system and conduct in general goes much further than any maybe conduct that an unhoused individual does, but conduct that many of our community members do, and how does that impact the system? And when it comes to prosecution, when it comes to housing individuals in a jail, et cetera. So the jail system, the criminal justice system as a whole, which includes patrol, it includes prosecution, and includes the jailing, is a total subject independent of itself. Yes, it has links to so much of what we're talking about, but it really should be its own subject.
Is that even something we can tackle, or?
Well, we definitely can. I mean, we could do it. We could start it if there's specific information that you're looking for. I mean, we can just give you a memo on certain things, like what's the capacity of the jail, how are they operating the jail, and you know, if there's specific information you want in there, we can do that. But we could do that through a memo and not through a workshop.
That would be very helpful to start. Thank you.
Perfect. And it wasn't to diminish your guys's, but I kind of have the same feeling as Aaron. If you do start putting certain topics together in the same format, it could be construed as targeting. I'm going to say the word, that's exactly what somebody's going to say. Well, now you're talking about law enforcement and what you can and can't do in the same topic as homelessness. Now you're targeting homelessness. So that I think you also have to take in context of what the public will see when you're doing this and how you actually research it. I think it is prudent to have separate those two items out in an educational workshop. Does anybody, Victoria?
So just to clarify, this particular workshop is going to be law enforcement response to homelessness. I thought that would include behavior, by the way, but I understand if that needs to be separate. And then the efforts that are being made right here locally that will get people or could get people off of the streets. Is that correct, this two-part workshop?
Yes.
Joel?
I would ask Victoria to use a little bit different word, because words are important. And on that first one, it's not necessarily law enforcement and homelessness, it's law enforcement and criminals. Because criminals are throughout, and they prey on the homeless as well. And so it's to everybody's benefit that we address that in a positive manner, and use the right words to describe it, because homeless is not synonymous with criminals. Criminals occur throughout our city, and they affect everybody, including the unsheltered. So.
Yes, thank you.
And I know that's what you meant.
I didn't mean to imply that.
Yeah,
thank you.
I know that's what you meant.
Perfect. So I'm going to take the floor a little bit, if you guys don't mind, unless there's some more pressing information. So this is still within agenda. I did say earlier on that I want to throw it up in the air here and maybe make some changes to how we actually do public meeting. Specifically, the topic that I want to talk about at this moment is public comment.
Public comment within our charter is a courtesy that the city council provides to the public. This is public comment in general. This is not weighing in on agenda items that have a judicial nature where we do have an open forum for them to express their opinions in favor or opposition to the actual motion that we would be voting on. This is actually the general public comment portion of our meetings. Within the charter, it does say that we would afford the public a total time of 30 minutes. I would like us to stick to that. Current procedure, as the way I understand it, is that a public citizen will come in and utilize a blue card or a card system, write their name and their topic of discussion on the card, and then we would be presented that card, and then we can go through that. Again, the charter states that we can afford the public 30 minutes total. So if we have everybody in agreement, I would like to stick to that 30-minute timeline. So that means if we have one card, that person would be afforded the allotted 2 minutes. If you had 100 cards, then we would have to have the discussion that there's only a 30-minute time limit, and we could give so many people a minute. I mean, might be a hard road sometimes, but the first meeting you guys had was 5 hours long. So I'm going to throw it on the table for discussion. That would be my recommendation, is if we can stick to what the charter says, which specifically would be public general comment would be limited to 30 minutes, utilizing the card system of people signing up and putting their name and what the topic of discussion would be, and then we would go in that order. Rob.
Where in the charter does it say that, Clint?
I had discussion with the town manager, and he expressed to me that there was a 30-minute timeline that could be.
You use the word, it's in the charter, just where is it in the charter?
Council has adopted rules that...
I understand, I just thought that maybe I missed something in the charter, because it's not in the charter, right? No.
The 30 minutes is not in the charter,
Right,
but it's
so
council adopted
I just wanted to be
rules.
clear.
Okay, well then I apologize, I misspoke.
Okay. When you say something's in the charter, that actually has a lot more gravity than...
You are correct. What is in the charter is that this is a courtesy.
Thank you. It has a lot more gravity than if it was in council rules that the last council adopted. So just to be clear, it was in council rules that are very malleable without a vote of the people. Something that's in the charter requires a vote of the people, as you know.
Absolutely.
So we wouldn't be changing anything that was in the charter before you get criticized for trying to do that without a vote of the people. I'm saving it here, Clint.
Understand.
Okay, so it was in council rules. Okay, so now that everybody knows, that's something that's malleable that council can easily change. Thank you.
I appreciate the information, Rob, and I do apologize if I misspoke. I do know that it is in the charter that says it's a courtesy. Is that wrong? But that's okay. So it's a topic of discussion. If I come across it the wrong here, I was the only person that was realistically singled out in this last event that we had on Friday night, and I'm still in a little bit of an uproar over the whole thing. It was not the way I want my community to treat me, and I don't want my community to treat anybody that sits up here that serves that community in a volunteer unpaid position. I mean, it was the actions of certain people on last Friday night was unacceptable, and I want to implement some things in the next meetings when we have a lot of the public in here. I want them to understand that everybody needs to act in decorum. We need to treat each other right, and some of these things that I want to bring up and hopefully we can implement are going to be for the safety of us as well as the community. So I would like your guys' opinion, if you'd like to make sure that we tailor the general public comment to 30 minutes. That's a question. Go ahead, Indra.
My question is, should we decide to adhere to that? Council can always, during the meeting, vote to extend that. Would that be correct if we felt like we wanted to hear more, or no?
I'm not sure. I'm going to default to Aaron on that.
Yes, council could, if council so desires, make a motion to extend your rule. You were the one that adopted it. I would say that it would be, we're talking public, the mayor's talking public comment. He's not talking a public hearing where where public comment is required, or council action item where we are allowing public comment. The mayor's talking about public comment. There is and it's very common to have a 30-minute rule to allow for, because it's a business meeting. There are many opportunities that people have to speak to council or express their concerns about issues. So you could make that change, Councilor, if you so desired. I would just be consistent with how you utilize that, or the rule is weakened. So someone might say, well, you did it for this topic, but you didn't do it. You did it this night, but you didn't do it that night, and it just opens you up. It puts a target on. So whatever you adopt, I would just say try to adhere to whatever you're comfortable with.
And my intention is if something is adopted, there's always the opportunity to change it if we get feedback from the public that's not in their best interest, and you guys can decide that at this point. I am completely and 100% standing up here and telling you why I want this to happen is because I had a very negative experience, and I don't want anybody else to have that experience. Rob.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand this. Quite frankly, last Tuesday night's meeting is still a little bit of a blur to me, but I don't remember exactly how long public comment was rather than people discussing the council action items. It seems like however many action items we had, there was a lot of comment on that. There was, 20 or 30 people that discussed the first one, whatever the first one was, the mint thing. There was, so to me, public comment that night, I barely remember, quite frankly, so I don't know how your action would actually address the length of our meeting. I don't believe that, for instance, had this been in place last Tuesday, I don't think our meeting would have been appreciably less. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but what was the minutes on the actual public comment versus people discussing the action items? That seemed to me to be 4 or 5 hours worth, and the comment itself was just a few minutes. What am I missing there, Clint?
You are correct. There was comment within each action item, and we actually, I actually removed general public comment before the meeting started from the agenda. So you are correct. The length of the last meeting was not due to general public comment.
So basically, reducing general public comment would have done nothing to the length of our last meeting. I forgot, there was no public comment at all. So actually, your solution wouldn't have done anything for last meeting, for instance. Now, the question I also have is, how does your solution address the bad behavior of a certain number of citizens last Friday night? I don't see how it does that either. I don't know if any of those people were in the council chambers that night or not, but I don't see how, in other words, you seem to have a problem, or the problem you seem to be wanting to address is rude or possibly dangerous behavior in public. I don't know how reducing the minutes of public comment, other than almost seeming like a punishment, I don't see how, practically speaking, that would actually do what you seem to want to have done. And I think it could be perceived as punishing the people with your newfound power. I don't know necessarily that is a good look, and I don't know, practically speaking, if it's going to do what you seem to want to have done. So I'd be against it unless somebody can actually tell me how those two things actually line up, and your solution would actually solve whatever problem, that you experienced.
I appreciate your comments, Rob. I'm actually posing this to the council to make a decision, so I'm not forcing any power down anybody's throat. It is something that somebody brought up to me that said that, that you do have the ability to, within council rules, as you're stating, it used to be 30 minutes long. It's something I'm bringing to you guys to make the decision. I'm not making any of these decisions to punish people. I'm just being honest with you and telling you where my little bit of rage is coming from at this moment in time, because I had a horrible experience. And it wasn't that people were being angry and mad. It was we physically were accosted by these people. And they were not there to protest. They were there to be, whatever. So this is a question to you guys, if you want to make these changes for the next meeting or not. Sorry, Indra?
So I understand that the majority of comments were for the agenda items. which made the meeting long. However, I can foresee in the future where something isn't on the agenda and a lot of people use that public comment time to go on and on and on. And so I think we didn't even have a lot of public comment. I've really never seen a ton of public comment. So I would be in favor of making a policy for 30 minutes. And that's something we could revisit if that turned out to be an issue.
Aaron?
Did you want?
Oh, sorry, Kathleen.
I'll go after
So
Kathleen.
what I understood is that you were just asking us if we agree to stay with the 30-minute that the former council already put in place.
Yes.
Yeah, and my comment was to that effect too. The mayor, I think the spirit of what the mayor's trying to do is make sure that we have business meetings that run effectively and efficiently. And the public comment aspect is one of those items. And going back to what Councilor Pell mentioned, which is true, we didn't have public comment that one night. That was all just council action items. And each council action item had a number of people and they were speaking. Council action, there's no public law requirement for public comment under council action. Public hearings, yes, there are. So we treat all of our council action items like public hearings, in essence. We have the staff report, we have questions of staff, we have public comment, then we have deliberation to an action by council. You could technically have a discussion, I'm not saying to do it today, but maybe we have a discussion on a workshop about council rules and protocol. But you could also limit each council action item to a 30-minute or to a 15-minute or whatever. You're still providing comment, but then if you've got 15 people, or let's say you've got 30 people in the audience and you've got 15 minutes for public input on a council action item, then each one of those 30 people get 20 minutes. Because we do have guidelines within our rules that the mayor is to also at times so desired, if you have a big room, the mayor can try to facilitate. Those of you that are in favor of this, get together, pick someone, I'm giving you 7 minutes. Those of you that are opposed, get together, figure it out, I'm giving you 7 minutes. And then they come in and they speak with one voice. It's just an aspect of trying to run an efficient and effective meeting, and that's where the heart of the mayor's coming from, I believe.
Thanks, Aaron. Victoria?
If it appeared as though there was going to be more than 30 minutes of public comment based on blue cards, how would we decide who was going to speak? And then I might suggest that it would just be a random pulling of cards if time was running out, or something of that nature.
Go ahead, Aaron.
The way I think it'd be most fair and equitable is if you, unless you coordinated it, which takes a little bit of time, is if, let's say you have 50 people, but you've got 30 minutes, you just reduce the time. If you've got, so normally we give people 2 minutes. Maybe we break it down to where they get 1 minute each. You know, there's that saying where you've got 30 seconds, 30 seconds, you should be able to state what you can state in 30 seconds, 3 seconds, 30 seconds, 3 minutes. What is your topic? What is your interest? So you could shorten the minutes, allow everybody to speak at the same time. But the blue cards help regulate that in advance because you know how many people are speaking.
Rob?
Yeah, the random picking of cards is probably among the worst ideas you could imagine. You could have people that literally it's the first time in 5 or 10 or 20 years they've ever come to a council meeting to speak, and then they could be told, gee, sorry, you didn't win the lottery tonight. So that's a really bad idea. It would be a lot easier for them to understand, gee, I only got to speak 1 minute because there was 29 other people that also wanted to speak that night. But to just throw somebody out, again, who maybe they hired a babysitter, maybe they got a ride here because they don't drive at night, and to tell them they can't speak that's a good way to inflame people, I think, and it wouldn't be a smart move.
Thanks, Rob. So I just have a question, whether you guys want to stick with a 30-minute time limit or not, and then we'll wrap this thing up. Thumbs up? Joel? Questions, comments?
Well, the time limit to me is one of personal convenience, and it can work either way. The thing the subject that concerns me most in my community is the de-escalation and civil comment. And, you know, public discourse is an important part of that, done in a respectful manner. And so it's, I was just asking myself what was the answer to the other question about how to de-escalate the P brain, the lower brain activity, and get it back into the upper brain so that we can make good decisions together. And I haven't answered that yet. So that's why I was, you know, the 30-minute one. If you need more time, you can always extend it. It'll probably do well for most of our meetings. I'm not sure it's the most relevant question before us.
Rick?
Joel, I like what you said, and I think the main essence in there is that people want to feel they're being heard. And I realize if we limit it to 30 minutes, I would like to say either somebody else has spoken what that other person is thinking, so they feel heard. But I think also the discretion the city council has, if we feel the moment is appropriate, we can extend that time. But otherwise, as we've seen over time, we can sit here for, when we didn't have that 30-minute limit, we would sit here and hear the same comment over and over again with no real new revelations. Thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, Rick, I agree. You know, the past count, yes, you know, going back just a little further, you know, we had the group that was hijacking the beginning of all our meetings when public comment was in the beginning, and that, you know, we changed it to the middle for the meetings for that reason, because again, that group was saying the same things over and over, not just at each meeting, but meeting after meeting after meeting within each meeting. But also, I just wanted to point out that while the last council did have the 30-minute rule, which I would be okay with, I don't know that we ever enforced it because we actually placed a pretty high value of giving the public the ability to express themselves. And I definitely would not be changing it from meeting to meeting based on, because, you know, we'll be accused of based on, you know, partisan preferences, which is obvious. I mean, there's zero doubt that if we were going to extend public comment, you might do it for some group, and the former mayor might do it for a different group. And a future mayor might, again, do it for a different group. So, you know, extending it or changing it from meeting to meeting, I think, is probably not a good idea. We did make that rule, but we also, I don't know that we ever enforced it because we placed a very high priority on allowing people to express themselves for better or for worse. Yeah.
And I appreciate the comments, Rob, and that's exactly why I'm kind of bringing it up at this moment in time until we get into our regular meeting schedule, so we have kind of a consensus going forward. Kathleen?
Well, what comes to mind to me with that is that if the last council wanted more public input, why did they reduce the public speaking time from 3 minutes to 2 minutes?
Rick?
Because we heard the people saying the same thing over and over again, and usually in their first minute, they have made their point, which we realized, and then they elaborate, and they just keep elaborating on the same topic. And we found the 2 minutes worked actually quite well.
And I'm not here to hash out what anybody else did. This is what you guys want to do going forward. So basically, I asked the question if you'd like to stick to a 30-minute time limit for general public comment. I got a thumbs up from everybody and discussion from Joel. So I'm taking that as you guys want to stick with that. So we'll stick with a 30-minute timeline on general public comment. And we will not be, this will be set precedents going forward. You have the ability to discuss this in the future and change it in the future, but we're going to utilize this going forward. Does anybody else have any questions or comments, or can we end this thing? Perfect. Thank you very much.